Hey Pascal, it's kind of cliche to say, but this of course really was a season unlike any other for yourself, the coaching staff, the players themselves. But now that we've had just a little bit of time, just what were your thoughts on this 2020-21 season?
We didn't even know how many games we would play. We didn't know who we would be playing against. We didn't even know where we were going to play. There's a lot of unknown before the season started. Um, Training camp was different. We're going through a tough time, all of us together, because of this pandemic. And then um, somehow the people in the American League, they find a way to make it happen, management and people at the league, and then finding ways and creating the protocols. And then the reason behind it, it's because they believe in the development of those players, and then making sure that we try to stay as normal as possible, even though everything around us is not. So following the protocols, following the rules, wearing a mask every day, getting tested every day, it was just different. And we had so many players. Most nights we didn't have a single veteran in the lineup. We had a bunch of new guys just trying out to prove themselves that they can play in this league. And then first thing you know, you're building some kind of chemistry. Played the first few games at the big rink downtown, and then we moved to the Iceplex. So that was a new adventure as well, playing 17 games in a row at home. Blocks of games, blocks of practices, everything was different. The way we managed the team, the way we communicate with the team, everything was different. Getting to know the players, even though you couldn't really meet with them, everything was different. So considering all of that, very thankful for the management, the people at the league, the medical staff, the testing crew, the coaching staff, the trainers. Everybody had to do a little bit more, had to reinvent themselves, finding ways to keep it interesting and fun for the players at the same time as developing their skills and them as people. To me, the investment that Mr. Chipman and the ownership had, and the vision that they had, they wanted us to play. It's been an amazing year considering what we've been through. We don't control this pandemic, but we were able to control what we do and how we can adjust and adapt. And to me, that's one of the most important things that you need to do as a hockey coach, is being able to adapt. And we did it really well. The players were amazingly good at adjusting, following the rules, and we've had some success on the ice. And we had a lot of fun working hard. So it's been, it could have been a real long season, but I must admit that today it's one of the year I will remember the most, because of the adversity we faced, but also because of the results that we've had, and getting to know new players and facing the kind of adversity that we were facing, all of us together. I mean, and I'm not just talking about the Moose, but the league overall. It was an interesting season, one that we'll remember for the rest of my life.
We'll go next to Dave Minuk. Go ahead, Dave.
Thanks, Jen. Hey, Pascal. Can you believe the season's over? I mean, it feels like just yesterday that we were talking about the start of the season, training camp, and now 3 months later, your season's done. Players seemed almost shocked by it, left some guys behind in Ottawa, and we talked about that this morning in the availability, and they seem like, Nathan Todd said it seemed shocking to be driving and not being with those guys anymore, that after all of you guys have had accomplished this year, to have it just kind of end seems almost too sudden.
It is. It went by so fast. And the feeling was the best way to put it was the players were sad that it was over. We had such an amazing group. we started to do our exit meetings today. So we're meeting the players individually. And that's the common theme. Like, they really enjoyed being together. They really enjoyed going through the adversity together, the good times, and the harder times. It went by really fast because we had a lot of fun and we didn't want this to finish. And that's the other part too about this season. And I just can talk about myself. My brain is always, and I said that to a few players today, my brain is always thinking about playoffs and thinking, oh, would that work in the playoffs? Would that guy be a good player in the playoffs? Would his habits be good in the playoffs? But we had to play a full season knowing pretty much that we wouldn't have any playoffs. But our guys just competed hard like we were playing for a playoff spot. So they had the real strong team chemistry. They found a way to get together and get on the mission together and to be the best team we can possibly can be, even knowing that there's no playoffs. So the feeling was, we were sad that it was over. We loved to compete. We enjoyed being around each other and working with each other and pushing each other. And sometimes it was a little bit messy. Sometimes it was fun and smiling. But at the end of the day, it was respectful. And it was a bunch of guys that wanted to work hard for themselves and for the guy sitting next to them. So it's just too bad it's over, but we're very, very grateful. I'm saying it's too bad it's over because there's no playoffs, but very grateful that we had the opportunity to play. It's a major investment that the ownership has made in us, and we certainly appreciate it very much.
You know, one of the things we've talked about throughout the course of the years is that this is a developmental league. You're here to win, but also to develop players. But how much did that get boosted this year by the fact that you guys were having so much success and so much fun? Like, I talked to some of the players today, and they said just the 3-on-3 tournaments that you guys would kind of, they said everybody was jazzed up to get ready and try and win that. It kind of added an element. But, we talked about it. You had a defensive group that was full of Jets prospects, all young guys, especially when you lost Jimmy Olney for the rest of the season. So how much does that go towards the overall development for these players? Did they gain, do you think, from this season?
I guess we could say it was a real good year for development, and I truly believe it was. But the real and the truth is that we'll know in a year or two, right? We'll be able to see if it was really good in a year or two when we can see the growth of certain players. We certainly feel that we grew a lot as a team, and we felt the growth of our players, especially our younger players. I thought our D group was extremely good at having a good gap and making that first pass, joining the rush. We tried a few different things this year that we got very good at them. The way we defend the rush against, and the way we kill plays in the defensive zone, the way we join the rush. And then we were quite specific about those things, and they responded really well. Now, is that going to play a huge role in their development? I think so, but only time can tell us the real answer. But I think it was a good development year because we had a chance to practice more. We had blocks of practices, and we went outside the box. We wanted to create an environment where, first of all, they feel that they're growing and that they're working hard, but it was also fun coming to the rink. And so we had those tournaments, and we had a prize for the winning team, and the losing team had to do some chores around the team, around the rooms, and the guys enjoyed it. And we had a draft and even drafting the jersey. So we made it fun, and we enjoyed it, and the guys enjoyed it very much. And then we had skill days where we only had the forwards on the ice and working on specific drills for forwards, and even beyond that for wingers, and then for center. And we had specific drills, specific days for defensemen, and working on their craft and their skills, the skills that we believe we need to have in order to be good defensemen or to develop good defensemen. So we worked on that a bunch. And then we could see that they would bring those skills into the games, and we could see things that or goals that were scored, like the under the stick power move, while a player keeps moving his feet, attacking the net. Gustafsson scored a goal like this. Perfetti went to the net, far post, beating the D one-on-one. So we think that it was a real good development year. But long term, I think we will see it. But the real answer is we'll wait and see and evaluate in a few years how good this year was for our players.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Jacob Stoller. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Pascal. Jeff Malott obviously has had a really impressive year. But what's really interesting about his production is a lot of it's coming at even strength, and a majority of those goals have come into the inner slot. Malott obviously didn't come in with a huge pedigree statistically and whatnot. He has the frame, but would you say that his ability to convert in those inner slot chances where half the goals in the NHL just about are scored is a huge, huge proponent for him and his potential?
I think so. I think he showed up at camp in real good shape. I think that created some self-confidence, and he was able to push through hard practices and feel good about himself by doing that. And he got excited as a player because he could produce in practices. We saw it as coaches. We gave him an opportunity to play with on different units. He was on the power play. So the confidence was high to start, and he should have been. He showed up ready, and it went very high. He scored some big goals for us early in the season, and he felt, okay, I can play in this league. Not only that I can play, but I can produce. And then he kept studying the game. He kept working hard. He kept doing the right things in the gym. We evaluate the players after every single practice and games, and his reports are really good. It's consistent. He's working hard. Is he perfect? Nobody is perfect, but his effort was perfect, and his attitude was perfect. And then, once you create that kind of positive energy and you get the results, then you just keep growing, and then you keep getting better, and it's a cycle. And he took advantage of it. Like I told him after the last game, I had a quick chat with him, and he said, thank you for the opportunity. And I said, yeah, we gave you an opportunity, but you took advantage of it, and you should be really proud of yourself. He really took advantage of it. He worked hard, good player, great teammate. He's pushing the pace, leadership skills with his actions, pushing hard. So, the results are there. The stats are the stats. Some guys have great stats at the junior or college level, and it doesn't translate into the pros. And some guys like Jeff has, just normal stats, and he gets better at the pro level. And he's one of those guys where he keeps getting better and better. So it's good for him. Really happy for him. He had a great season, and I think his confidence is really high right now, and he's going to have a good summer, and he's going to be a good player next year.
Declan Chisholm's a guy that obviously he's renowned for his puck handling abilities. And I just went back and looked, and I remember you saying about how important it is to be the first touch on the puck in the D zone, right? You're having the puck first. It limits the amount of time you need to play defense, obviously, in that capacity. But is the goal for him next year and beyond to hash out to really work on his defensive side of the game, or is it to continue doing what he's doing and excel in that puck transporter type of mold, if you know what I mean?
Yes. So I'll go back to what I said before.
Yeah.
Is the kind of game he plays, would that work in the playoffs? Would he be a successful player in the playoffs? And the answer is yes. And the reason I'm saying that is, yes, he's got the skills, and that's what you see. When you look at a player and you evaluate a player, you're looking at what comes first. And then he's got skills, and he can skate, he's agile, he can He's playing with some pace. Then you study a player, and then you watch what he does and what he's good at and what he needs to improve. And what he needed to improve is adjust his defensive game. We don't want to turn him into a defensive defenseman. That's not what he is. We want him to become the best defenseman he can become using the skills that he has. And the skills that he has is all about quickness. Now, the thing we didn't know about him was how intense he would be and how could he sustain the intensity. And he did. I was really impressed with him. At some point, he was the guy that was blocking the most shots on the team. So you need to be willing to do that. So he has the willingness, he has the speed, and he works hard. He's coachable, asking a lot of questions from day one at training camp. He was ready to go. So the player that I've seen coming in the previous years as a prospect and coming to development camp, every year I saw a little bit of improvement. And this year he made a big step. Coming to camp, I didn't know what to expect. Is he going to be just an offensive defenseman with some power play skills? But to win in the playoffs, you need more than that. If you're going to be only an offensive defenseman, you have to be really good at creating offense and being at the top of the league in order to be successful and sustain a good career. And Chiz is more than that. He's not just offensive. Now he's proven to himself and to us that he can defend. He can play against heavier lines. He can get the puck out under pressure, getting that first touch. So you're under pressure. You're under forecheck. Big men are coming at you. Are you willing to go touch that puck first and make the next play? And he did. So real good season for him. Just too bad he got injured by the end. But overall, very positive season. I think he's not only a good offensive defenseman, but he's coming a really good defenseman overall. And he's put up the work. So we're really happy with his first year.
Thanks, Pascal.
We'll go next to Murat Atesh. Go ahead, Murat.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, Pascal. I was really fascinated with that answer you gave about the outside the box practice styles and the games that you guys played. And I'm also fascinated by, such a unique year as it is, a unique piece of adversity and how people share it. I'm wondering if you have insight as to how some of these guys changed as young men going through something really wild and different together as people.
Very interesting, because we didn't have any captain. We didn't know. We didn't know who would be with the taxi squad. We didn't know who would be with us. You never know the injuries that can happen in a season, Jets and Moose. So a lot of guys were saying today that just by looking around the room and seeing how guys are pushing the pace in practices, that they learned from that. We had guys, quiet guys that people don't talk about much, Cole Meyer and Jonathan Kovacevic and Hayden Shaw or Nicholas Jones. Those guys were pushing the pace in practices. We had Eric Comrie coming down, just his attitude and what he's been through. So we had positive people that are working extremely hard, and it's contagious. It is contagious. You're around those guys, and all of a sudden, if you're having an average day, all of a sudden you're having a better day. You're having a better day, then your practice is a little bit better. So you get a little bit better as a player, and it created that kind of cycle. And looking at when we prepared the season, looking at the blocks of practices, because we had long days or long period of time in between games, we needed to be creative. And so we decided to have skill days and competing days. And that's what when we thought about the 3-on-3 tournaments and to make it special, make it our own. So our coaches, assistant coaches, did an amazing job at preparing those days, and we came together and we had different ideas, and so we kept it interesting. And the guys, there's one guy today, he said, my season, I didn't like my start, but once we started to play those 3-on-3 tournaments, I started to get better and I felt good. I scored a few goals, and that's when I gained my confidence. So sometimes the trickle down effect of the things that you do, you don't even realize how good it is until some players share it with you. And we're asking for honest feedback, right? So if it wasn't good, we want to hear about it so we don't do it again. But it was very interesting. And at the same time, I'm saying this, and we had the right players. Those people responded really well, and they were part of it, and they wanted to be part of it. So it's guys are learned a lot from each other. But there's a lot of people on our team that people don't talk necessarily about them, that were pushing the pace and quietly were leading the way, just in the way they were practicing and preparing and in the gym and the way they were helping each other. There's a lot of good stories about this year.
Like you say, I mean, some of those guys whose names you named, not a lot of headlines. I have had the fortune, excuse me, of talking to Jonathan Kovacevic at one point, and you named him as one of those players. I'm wondering if you could share a story about his impact on the team as people.
On Covey?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, well, so this guy, after our season last year, we always run our exit meetings and we talked about the season, and it's quite direct. To be honest with you, it's to the point, and we're not trying to sound nice. We're just being honest because we believe that's the only way we can help our players. And Covey had a good season, but there was a few things we wanted him to work on and get better. And all of them is gap, is stick work, is physicality, is his speed, is conditioning. Not that it wasn't great, but we felt there's some room to grow, and it improved on all of them. So his summer of training, he took really advantage of that. He's a real mature man, very interesting guy. He's got tons of stories. Captain in the past, you can tell he's got leadership. Very smart man, and he's a laid back kind of guy. The guys feel safe around him. They feel safe that they can speak to him. They feel safe that they can ask any kind of questions, and he's going to be honest with you. He brings a lot to the table. But the bottom line is he's also a hockey player, and he improved a lot. So he went from being a prospect to a guy that I truly believe can now play games in the NHL, and who knows where he's going to go from there. But his growth has been really good, and he's a guy that when you speak to him, he understands where you're coming from. If he doesn't agree with you, he's going to tell you in a respectful manner, and that's the great thing about him. There's going to be an exchange, but there's so many things. Like, he's the one who can tell you more about different stories. But from my perspective, the growth has been very positive, and from where he was last year to where he is this year, good for him. He's been doing a real good job.
We'll circle back to Dave Minuk. Go ahead, Dave.
Thanks, Jen. Coach, we're hoping, of course, next year that everything is back to normal, whatever that means. But let's hope that means a 76-game regular season and a normal schedule and not as condensed. But are there any lessons? You said you were talking to the players and asking them for their feedback. Are there any lessons that you were able to take from this season that you maybe didn't think of in a normal season and bring them forward for next year?
Yes, there is quite a few. Just the way we run our practices, there's a few things that we've done this year because we had so much time that I feel we need to bring again in the future. Even if we don't have that much time, there's a few components of our game that will benefit if we work on different skills. Feel like working on those specific aspects of the game that are more targeted to certain individual or where you play. If you improve that, automatically your system's going to get better because they can execute it faster and better. So that's one thing, but it's quite obvious. Leadership, not having a captain was a bit scary because we didn't know who would take the lead. And we found out that the group itself, so let's say we had 20 players. The best way to describe it is, and I've read that multiple times before, the power of the group. We had 20 players, so 40 arms, 40 legs, but we really had one heart. Like that team was pushing together and they had the same desire to be the best they could be. So leadership is important. We all know that. But the team leadership that we had this year was beyond having a captain. They were pushing each other in a very respectful manner. And sometimes they were pretty direct with each other. But the guy that was being told knew it was coming from a good place. So it's lots of good lessons this year. We had guys that we didn't know if they could play, but given an opportunity, they took advantage of them. So being patient with players, even more so nowadays. Like Jeff Malott, for example, we didn't know about him, took advantage of it. But there's more than him, obviously. So there's a lot of lessons that we've learned about our team, the way we speak to our team. We did different things this year about our meetings and how we present our special teams, for example. And I think we're going to keep that part. It was different. It was new. The players enjoyed it. And it was just not a one and done. They could revisit it anytime they wanted. So a lot of good things that we've done this year that I'm not sure you would necessarily try in a normal season, but we had the schedule and the opportunity to try them, and a lot of good things we're going to keep.
Last one for me, and I know how thankful you are that you were able to play this season, but just how many people, I mean, I'm not asking you to name everybody, but how many people are there that are involved in this team that made this season run so smoothly, from the medical staff to the trainers to the communications people? I mean, it's amazing how many people were involved in getting this up and running. And yet, I mean, nobody will ever hear their names, and they did so much to keep you guys going every single day.
It's amazing. Like, I know Dan Fink wants me to talk about him right now. And he was great. But you know what? When something like this happened, I think it started at the top. Mr. Chipman made it obvious to all of us we're going to play that year and we're going to invest. And then the management and Zinger. There's a guy we never talk about, and this guy is a genius in my opinion, and it's Brad Andrews. This guy makes it happen. Like when he's around, I could shut my brain off because he's taking care of stuff, and we know it's going to be done right with the details. So Brad was huge for us this year. Obviously, the coaching staff. I mean, Rick Sankwa is doing an amazing job. Like, this guy has such a good relationship with the players. He's one of the best men I know. Marty Johnston, Eric Dubois, Richard Bouet. They've been amazing. But Zach and Kyle, I don't want to name all of them, but that's what I'm doing, and I'm sorry about that, but it's important. Zach, I mean, his phone is on 24/7. All the questions, a guy is not feeling right at 9:00 at night, and or a slight headache, and I mean, and Kyle adjusting the trainings and helping, and Spike and Cookie, our trainers, equipment guys, like those guys. Everybody had to do more, and everybody had to chip in a little bit differently and help each other. And the players did it. We had 39 players playing at least one game this year, and all of them needed attention, and they needed to be supported. and they were great in the room, but the people around them and our coaching staff and our medical staff, our trainers, our equipment guys, media, ownership, management, we were all in this together, and we tried to help each other the best we could. And there's no ego. And Mike Keane was around the whole time. He didn't have to. He's the player development guy, but he's been around helping and carrying bags. The guy has Stanley Cups, carrying bags after a road trip. Like, everybody chipped in a little bit more. And so we're very grateful, but I think True North is doing one of his biggest quality if they hire good people. And we had a bunch of good people, and I'd be disappointed in myself if I didn't mention Goose and Jen, that are also doing an amazing job for us, making sure that everything runs smooth with the media. So it's been, and the doctors and there's so many people. The people we test every day. We've been testing every day since January 3rd. Those people are there smiling. It's not great for them. We don't enjoy going there and getting tested, but they're there with a smile and make the day a little bit better. It's been an amazing year for that.
Appreciate it.
We'll go back to Jacob Stoller. Go ahead, Jacob.
Hey, Pascal, last one for me. And thanks again for your time today and throughout the season. It's much appreciated. I just wanted to ask you, lastly, about you and your job. You spoke about it a bit. I've talked to you throughout the year, but how you've had to evolve, whether it was last off season or this year. But to wrap it up, how have you improved or had to adapt, and what have you learned from this season as a head coach for the Manitoba Moose?
Well, this is something I do every year. I love to study. I've always I loved to school. I really did. I love reading. I love studying. And this year was, I saw it as an opportunity to, I don't want to say reinvent myself, but it was a different challenge. And it gave me a chance to work differently with the coaching staff and give a little bit more and give up on some of the few things that I used to do in the past. For example, our meetings were a little bit different, and having the focus on what I felt, what it did this year, and what I've learned the most is I'm somebody that is quite detailed, and I work on that quite a bit. And this year I was detailed about choosing which details would be important, if it makes sense. And I got more specific with my meetings, to the point, even more so, because it had to be shorter. So I got to a point where I needed to understand what's the next meeting's going to look like, but the Reader's Digest version. So it's quick, it's to the point, and the guys understand, because we don't have that much time to explain it or to teach it. That it needed to be simplified the best we could. So I had to work harder to get to that point. So this year, that's what I figured out. I got better at that. I'm already a detail person, and now I got better at finding what's the most important today for the players and what needs to be shown. And I'm going to keep getting better at it. But that was a good year to do it. I'm going to still work on my craft and study and trying to get better. But this year was a good year for me as well in my development as a coach.
Thanks.
Welcome.
We'll finish off with Murat Atesh. Go ahead, Murat.
Listening to that details about details response, I'm throwing the script out the window and coming out of left field, which feels odd. I don't ask you too many questions, and I want to respect your time and the time of people who are here every day talking to you. But I'm wondering if you spent time thinking about, I think the concept's called decision-making fatigue. It's like why Barack Obama wore the same suit every day, or why Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook wore the same hoodies, or how exhausting it can be to be in a grocery store where there's 100 different types of toothpaste or what have you. And I just think about the job that you would do and the details upon details upon details, being just a string of decisions after decisions after decisions. Is there anything you do to insulate yourself against that sort of thing? And apologies for the left field question. It's just what I got.
That's great. That's a good question. So we live in a world where it needs to be fast, and you'd be surprised. Like the guys know around here. I come to the rink, change into my tracksuit, and we all do it. But we live a pretty simple life. It's home, rink, home, basically. And we love it. That's the beautiful thing about it. And this game is being played fast, and it could get complicated. I guess over the years you get confident about what needs to be done. I've said before, my brain works in a way that does that work in the playoffs? Are we going to be successful in the playoffs? And in the playoffs, the game is being played fast. And in order to win a cup, you need to play fast and be feeling confident about it. So this year helped me getting to a point where I felt we could teach what is the most important if we were in the playoffs right now, trying to win a series. And yes, to get to a point where it's simplified, it needs a lot of work. So going over the details is one thing, but understanding which details are important is the key. And we got there. We got there this year. We got there in the past too, but we got even better. I got even better this year at doing that, getting to a point. You don't need to show everything. You don't need to talk about everything. You need to find out about your team and what your team this year with the players that you have, what they need to hear in order to be successful and feel confident. Because they're hockey players. They know how to play hockey. They want to be creative. We know that. They want to play fast. They want to know what's important. And it takes a lot of work to get there. But once the message is clear and it's transferred and communicated to the team, it has to be simple, fast, and clear, to the point, and they know what to expect. So it's been yes, going over the details can be a long process, but I think it's necessary to get to a point where you know which details are important. But before getting there, it takes some work. But you know what? If our job was easy, I guess it wouldn't. If it was easy for me, it wouldn't be special. It's a job that requires a lot of work behind the scene, lots of hours watching the video, lots of times talking to people, watching hockey games on TV, revisiting what you do. But at the end of the day, when the players are developing and they're successful and they believe in you, when the coaching staff and yourself are working well together and the team is winning some games, there's nothing more satisfying than that. But there's a lot of work behind the scene.